Awesome. Thanks for the introduction. Super excited to be here. I mean, we've got a great panel, and I'm not sure how many people have been listening to the earlier sessions, but there's a lot of great takeaways so far. And, I hope that as we go through this session here, you can pick up on some other good takeaways. So, I want this to be interactive for everyone. So, if you have thoughts or if you want to engage in the conversation as well, drop it in the chat. As Becca mentioned, there's a little drop down there so that you select everyone, and that way we can all see your great comments or thoughts. So I'm going to actually start off with a question here, so we can get right into this here. And the first question that I want to propose is, why is recognition especially important for frontline workers? And do you have any stories about how recognition has made a real impact on someone? And I think in our past conversation, Rebecca, you and I, when we were chatting, you had some really good ideas here and around how you're recognizing employees for attendance and such. So maybe we can start with that.
Um, well, first of all, I start off saying we could not do what we do without our frontline workers. They're essential in our healthcare business. So, one recognition that we're very proud of is a few weeks ago, we recognized three of our employees for perfect attendance for 5 years straight. And what we did was we gave them a 4 foot Crystal Award along with a $500 gift card. And that was presented from our CEO. Each center had a celebration. The CEO went in and gave them the award along with the gift card. It's very touching. The response from receiving the awards. We had an employee that received the award that she was in tears. And after the celebration, several employees went up to the administrator. Were super excited and pumped about, the award ceremony, and said that they wanted to strive, to be just like that employee, and that was great. And yes, we are currently using Bucketlist, and along the lines of attendance, we also added, we call them cattails for our awards. We added 500 cattails to be given out to future employees of the year.
Yeah, I really love that. The ClearView team and yourself, Rebecca, are doing a lot of great things, and it sounds like you really made an emotional impact on those employees, seeing
Yes.
how they responded to that too. And yeah, just keep up the great work because it's working for sure. And yeah, Marlin, I wanted to just circle back with you as well because we had a chat. You were talking about this really cool idea that you had that I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'll let you share with everyone.
Yeah, sure thing. And it's interesting when you think about that question of why this really matters. When I think about our folks in manufacturing, a lot of times I have someone who they run their press day in, day out. They drive a forklift day in, day out. But you don't see that outside of the company walls, right? You may see our product, but a lot of times they may not get that recognition for the hard work that they do every day. And one of the really cool things that we've started doing is what we call our wall of applause. So when you have a retiree in the facility, as they're exiting on their final day, everyone stops what they're doing and they kind of make a line, two lines on either side. And that employee gets to walk through and be celebrated by all of their coworkers. So everyone's, giving them a round of applause. There's lots of high fives. And to Rebecca's point too, it gets to be very emotional too, to get that type of recognition for all of your hard work from your coworkers. And so that's really gone a long way. And the other cool thing about it is then the newer people in our organization, they see that and it gives them something to aspire to. And they say, I can't wait until I can get to that point and get that type of recognition from my peers. So it's really exciting to see.
I love that example, Marlon. And my father-in-law recently retired from a facility that did something very similar, and it was captured. And it was really cool because I created a LinkedIn post and shared that story, and it's amazing what type of impact that send-off can have, and especially for future generations or the future workforce that you mentioned. And Marlon, you also mentioned something about the boomerang employees when we were chatting last time.
Yeah, and this is the difference maker I think that you have when you've got a strong recognition program that really appreciates your employees. Because we've had a couple of examples where, an employee maybe left our company to go down the road for an opportunity that maybe looked better or maybe paid a little bit more money. But we see them come back because they noticed when they got to that other organization, something was missing, right? So the secret sauce that we have in recognizing people and creating a culture where people feel appreciated for the work that they do day in, day out, you don't get that everywhere. So when you can really build that into your organization, it's the difference maker where now people stick. And even when that phone rings from a recruiter or they get that email that says, "Hey, there's an opportunity out here you should look at," they don't want to leave because they feel like people see what I'm doing here. I'm recognized for my hard work, and this is where I belong. So we've seen that happen, several times, and folks are happy to come back.
That's great. It means you're doing a lot of the right things there. And as people are hearing these responses, if you're experiencing this as well, I mean, feel free to drop it in the chat as well here. Angie, is there anything from your perspective that you'd like to add on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think Marlon, you showcased this very well. The fact that frontline workers often they're operating in these kind of high stress environments, they're not really necessarily seen by leadership or by others. So, lack of recognition can lead to disengagement, burnout, turnover. Again, like they might leave for other opportunities if they don't feel like they're being recognized. I think something really important to note is also, the difference between a frontline worker and a desk-based worker. They're not sitting behind the screens where recognition might be like a Slack message that they get, or again, like it's kind of in this structural way, but they're out there on the front lines and they need that opportunity to feel seen, to feel valued, to feel heard. And it's not just a soft thing. Again, it kind of might feel like a very emotional, like soft thing, but the difference is like I actually am going to care about my job because someone notices, and then there's implications of because of that that impact actual business goals. So it's that difference between like I just want to do my job and get out of here. It's just a job versus like I care about this because they care about me.
Yeah, I love that too. And it actually touches on something that was discussed in an earlier session, that recognition and culture that happens within the workspace can live and will extend outside in your real world and your real life, your personal life. And there were some examples of um, you know, people giving recognition or asking if people are being recognized in hospitality and healthcare. So recognition definitely can live outside of work as well. It's contagious. But you actually brought up an interesting point, which is one of the challenges, right? So giving recognition to frontline staff can sometimes be challenging. So what are the biggest challenges frontline organizations face when trying to build a culture of recognition? And perhaps I'll pass this one over to you first, Marlon.
I think about that question, that two things come to mind for me. First of all, the consistency, because you don't want it to be a flash in the pan that, hey, we did it one time this quarter, we recognize someone. That's not enough, right? If you're consistent with it and can always finding those opportunities where someone has done something where they went above and beyond, they helped their coworker, they saved us money. Those kind of things happen every day. So we have to consistently reward folks for those types of behaviors. So that's the first thing. But then the second thing that I think about is all around flexibility, because different people want to be recognized in different ways. So we have to have programs that allow first for leaders to be able to do that sufficiently, but then also for folks to feel like this program really touches me. So it's not a one size fits all category because people are, at different phases of life for sure. But I think if we focus on those two things, making sure that we're consistent and making sure that we're flexible in what we can offer, that's going to really build a stronger program that people will engage with and it'll be effective.
Yeah, I love that. And Becky, Rebecca, what's your perspective from the healthcare space?
So from the healthcare side, it's a 24/7 business. Our employees are taking care of our residents, our vulnerable population. We want to take care of them. With it being a 24/7 operation, it's more challenging to carve out the time to give them the necessary recognition. So planning, events. And one thing that I think is wonderful, and thankful that we have Bucketlist is now, we can use the electronic digital kudos format. It doesn't take, 5 seconds to step away and, recognize someone for going above and beyond. So, we just need to, make sure that, back to Marlin's point, that we are consistent. It's not just a one and done. People appreciate the small things as well.
It's really cool. I just want to say one thing about that. When you first launched, because I remember this coming up here, one of the initial feedbacks I heard was that there was the day shift was seeing all the great things that the night shift was doing, and there was a lot more visibility about the great things that were happening within your space. So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
And Angie, how about yourself? Anything you'd like to add on this one?
Yeah, just to piggyback again, like both Rebecca, you mentioned it, the time constraints. Again, they've got a lot on their plates, so how can we make it easy to do, recognition? And also I feel like it's a three-pronged approach. It's like the recognition you get from the company, from leadership, manager recognition, as well as peer-to-peer recognition. All those have a space in the recognition program. And then when you're building a recognition program, going back to Marlin's point about consistency, and just kind of making scalable, you don't necessarily need to start with a big budget. Again, there's different ways to recognize. So, while it might be like a simple gesture, like real-time praise, when it happens, it being able to somehow give that recognition, peer acknowledgements, those can be just as impactful. You don't need like a huge budget to again, just get started with recognition. So find the approach that's going to make it, again, like a scalable program that's can be done consistently.
Yeah, no, I love that. And Angie, how does recognition influence employee engagement and satisfaction in frontline industries?
Yeah, we've seen this within studies like Gallup, that when people feel valued, they feel seen, they feel heard, they're more committed to the work, they're engaged, and that engagement turns into productivity, and productivity gains. So they report higher job satisfaction, that positive workplace culture is infiltrated into other places. So, high engagement, I think Gallup said it was like a 21% increase in profitability, and higher productivity. So again, it's not just a feel-good thing, but it has these real impacts. And then one thing that we touched on earlier is like that turnover impact. We have a customer at Beekeeper who's got a fantastic culture and recognition program. And they're continuing to build on it because they just really see the value of it. Their turnover back in 2022, kind of post-pandemic, was around 129%. I mean, it was pretty high. And the fact of the matter is that in frontline industries, that's kind of normal, unfortunately, to have high turnover. But after putting in, consistent recognition programs, starting on that, their number actually dropped to about 80%, which again, great improvement, still high, not fantastic, but they've just continued to build on it and contribute to that now they, do different types of awards. They're able to amplify it within Beekeeper so that everyone knows, again, recognition is possible. And they're now at about a 40%. So they're seen as an employer of choice within their industry, within their organization. So that's really exciting to see. And I just assume that it's going to continue to improve over time. But, it's not magic numbers. It's really, again, like treating people like humans that's going to make an impact on the business.
Yeah, and that's huge ROI too, going from 129% down to 40%. Like, imagine if you could take that as a business case to leaders and say, look what we can do. If you could repeat that, wow. Marlin, we were chatting before, And you mentioned that for you, it's about helping people understand their actions and the impact it has on the business.
Definitely, because again, focusing on some of our folks in manufacturing, from a high level, there's some separation between what they do day to day and then what the customer actually sees. So as we can tie our recognition program back to the things that matter to us, the things that are really important that our employees can impact. So when we talk about our delivery, well, we deliver on time to the customer because people showed up to work and made the right parts every day, right? Or we made quality products every time. And we did it safely and no one got hurt in the meantime because now an injured employee is no longer part of the workforce. So we've got all these adjustments that we have to make. So there's a lot of value that comes in by saying the things that you do by showing up to work every day, making good parts, helping your coworkers when there's issues, identifying problems, that you might see in your everyday work. There's value to that. So now as we reward them for that, now that ties them to the bigger picture of how we satisfy our customers. And our company, we're an ESOP company, so we're all employee owners. And so now they understand that even if it's a matter of me not getting a new pair of safety glasses every day, that saves money for the company. So that same level of engagement that we draw from an ESOP perspective, we want to do from a day-to-day work perspective. And I'll never forget, like for me, early on in my HR career, I was working on a co-op program that I was building for our organization. And I had done a presentation to the organization about it, and everyone was good. Yep, we're going to move forward with this. And the next morning, I'm in our little break room area getting a cup of coffee, and the company president walked in. And at this time, I'm, in my early 20s, new to the company. And he walks in and he says, "Hey, I saw your presentation on the co-op program. Great job. That's really going to solve a lot of our pipeline issues that we've had for, sourcing great candidates." And he walked away. And I stood there for probably another 2 minutes or so, just in awe that, wow, the company president actually took a few minutes to tell me how what I did is going to make an impact on our overall business. So you don't forget those types of opportunities. And so as we take that time again to congratulate someone, recognize someone for what they did just in their piece of the world, they understand the bigger impact that they're having on the entire organization.
Yeah, I love that, and I don't remember where I read this, but it was an article somewhere that said sometimes, for some people, the most memorable work experience that they may have is recognition directly from a senior leader, and in your case, it stuck with you all this time.
Absolutely.
And I want to circle back on safety. I think safety is super important no matter where you work. I mean, a well-deployed safety program can see about a 22% decrease in safety incidences. So that's going to save a lot of money if you can decrease safety incidences, to your point about people missing time and maybe not feeling well. So think about safety when you recognize folks as well.
Absolutely.
Love it. Yeah, thanks for that. Uh, Becky, anything from your point?
Well, I think mission programs are so important when it comes to employee morale. Um, People remember how you make them feel. And to your point about, senior leadership, reaching out and telling someone that they've done a great job, it goes a long way with the employees. Um, just being in the centers for a visit and telling a staff member, great job, thank you for taking care of our residents. And they appreciate that. There's other companies, and I've shared this story with you before, that they're not even engaged with their employees at all. ClearView hired an employee that I spoke with a week or two ago about, why do you like working for ClearView? And she says, I love the teamwork, the camaraderie. The company that she worked for previously, she said no one ever talked to her. So it really made me feel good, and we're fortunate that we have her, and we're appreciative of all our staff, and recognitions is just one way to, say thank you for all you do.
Yeah, I love that, and I'll continue and I'll ask you this. What are some of the most effective recognition strategies that you have seen specifically for frontline employees?
One of our most popular recognition programs, we created a program, we call it micro raises. So all of our frontline employees that do not call off for the quarter receive a 1% increase on their base pay. So an employee can receive 4% increase on their base pay, including an annual increase. And they love it. You know, you have employees, no matter what, they're going to show up to work. And this is just a little something extra for them for coming into work.
Yeah, I I love that, and you know, recognition is just also just an extension of thanks too, is which is something you mentioned earlier too. What are some awards that you give out at ClearView?
We give out perfect attendance, employee of the month. We give survey deficiency free bonuses, safety awards, of course, the micro raises. And I just want to point out a story with you. We've had one employee that has not missed a shift since we started our program since 2019. And we recognized her at our corporate annual meeting. So you can't do enough for your staff members.
Wow, that's a track record of attendance.
Dedication.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, good on you for putting that person on a pedestal too, and recognizing that. So, Marlon, we you had some cool ones as well, and one that even was based on a hurricane that devastated a specific area.
Yeah, the first ones that come to mind for me, again, going back to rewarding the behaviors that you want to see that impact the business. We do one called our quality MVP. And if you've ever seen on Amazon, you can get, they're over the top, but you can get like these necklaces with like a big gold plaque on the front of it. And so we get those and it says MVP. But again, for someone who caught something from a quality perspective before it left our facility and got to a customer, we reward them for that. And that becomes kind of a literal badge of honor, for a lot of our employees to get, that big quality MVP necklace. Another one that we'll do is we call it our Safety Inspector Award. In manufacturing, a lot of times we do struggle with folks being vocal about when they see a safety hazard. And we don't want people to just kind of walk by hazards. We want them to help us to identify it. So we reward folks when they do those types of things because, again, that's preventing their coworker from getting injured, the next day potentially. So those are two that, like I said, it directly ties into what makes us successful and how we can then, do it in kind of a cool and fun way. But yeah, to your point, one of our facilities, is in Western North Carolina. And as many of you heard about Hurricane Helene and just the devastating effects of what happened, that impacted about 300 of our employees. But what was so great was after the hurricane to just see the level of engagement, teamwork, and a real sense of family, and we had a few employees that just totally went above and beyond. One of our guys in particular, he has a big truck and he has a big chainsaw. So he's like, what can I do to help? And so he was going around, cutting down trees, helping people get out of their driveways, using his truck to to pull debris and everything away to help the whole clearing effort. So he and several others that were in that boat, we rewarded them for those behaviors because again, that's our values. Our company values, are that people matter and that we care about each other. And so they were showing that. And even though it didn't directly relate to what we were doing from a production standpoint, it fit our cultural values. And so we wanted to reward those folks for that. And I just think that really went a long way. They did it, out of the goodness of their heart, but we wanted to show them how closely that aligns to our values as an organization.
Yeah, I think you nailed something super important here that we haven't yet touched on, which is organizational values and tying recognition into it. So if when you're giving recognition, if you can align it with a value, you're just further reinforcing the values and the culture of the organization. Yeah, great. What are some other examples, Angie, that maybe you've seen from your perspective from maybe some types of awards that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that's kind of quick, personal, and real. So of course, shout outs are great, spotlighting someone in a meeting, or putting it on a digital wall. I think something to consider also just like how again, the frontline workers, they're maybe out in the field, out on the floor. so getting that visibility, showing that praise in a place, you know, that like meets where they're at. So, you know, make sure that it's in like high visibility. You know, if you're giving out actual like swag or incentives like this, that maybe you can use other channels to showcase that maybe retroactively. So social recognition and things like that. So, we've seen a variety of these similar kinds of awards, but I know we've also seen where people get to then pick like their shifts, or they get, I think Rebecca, you mentioned something once about like special lunch delivery or, you know,
Mhm.
coffee delivery. I think those are cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think just again, like meeting them where they're at.
Some other awards that I've seen are shift pickup awards. So depending on how your organization is structured, when someone picks up a shift for a peer, because sometimes that's a challenge with Frontline. So creating an award for that. I know we talked about perfect attendance too, and of course there is a fine balance between people committing perfect attendance to health and wellness, so there, to be mindful of there as well. Cost reduction, so anytime people come up with initiatives that are either cost savings or revenue generating, those people should receive some sort of award for that as well. And one of my favorites is a social media ambassador award. So I've seen some organizations create an award where they have individuals submit a screenshot or something that shows that they've posted about the organization in a positive way. And then a committee on the inside will determine who the recipient is for that month. But the thing I like about that award is there's no cost for it. I mean, you can monetize it if you like, but it's going to help reduce hiring times because when people see that their friends are working at great places, they're going to ask if they're hiring. So I'm a big fan of the social media award.
Yeah, and Aaron, I mean, we see that too, like referral awards, you know, it can, maybe it's a monetary amount that they get because they're referring their friends and family to come work for them because again, they love where they're working at. They feel appreciated. So they're going and telling everyone to come work with us. There's a position here, and then they can get rewarded for that as well.
Yeah, love it, and that's recruiting, and everyone's gonna love it if hiring times are reduced and good people know good people. But I also want to
Mhm.
touch on maybe some budget conscious strategies because not every organization has large budgets for awards. So I mean, I'll throw out a couple ideas that I've seen. I've seen preferred parking, jazz up a nice parking spot that's close to the facility entrance and call it VIP parking or CEO parking. I've also seen CEO calls your mom or family member. That's always well received as well. So, from my perspective, I think it's important to be creative with the type of rewards that you're going to offer employees if they're non-monetary. But how about from yourself, Marlon? Because I know you shared a really cool one that stuck in my head.
Yeah, because I'm a big believer in these don't have to be expensive programs. There's lots of low cost or no cost options, that you can definitely employ. So don't let budget be the thing that stops you from recognizing your employees. But a couple that come to mind for me, and there's one that, now this is an absolute bad dad joke, but in most of our meeting spaces, there's always a big window that's there. So when we celebrate someone or someone does something great for us, we put them on the window, so we list all of our wins that people have had, so maybe someone had a huge cost savings for us, or maybe someone got, a project completed early or, jumped through some hurdles. So they get their name kind of branded on the window, as kind of a badge of honor. And so that kind of becomes our wall of fame. The other kind of similar to what you're talking about with the CEO calling home, sending a letter to that employee's home, because you think about that sense of pride that they get from opening this letter from someone in leadership, showing their family, maybe even putting it up on the refrigerator, next to their kids' grades. I mean, that goes such a long way. And I think that through all of these things that we're doing, we're trying to create that positive experience that gives them a reason to say, look what happened at work today. Look what my job did. So that again, back to your whole referral conversation, more people are going to talk about those kind of things that happen. Or if I've got a relative that comes over and sees a letter from my company on my refrigerator, well, wow, I want to work for a place like that. So I think that really helps people realize that I'm in the right place.
Yeah, big fan of that. And I like to when you call it like window or something that people can remember too. Becky, how about from your perspective from Clearview? Are there any budget conscious ideas that you're running within Clearview?
Well, Mick signs birthday cards with a little note to every employee. We have over 2,400 employees on staff. I think that that's great. Um, um, Thank you notes go a long way. You know, they're minimal cost. Um, you know, we recognize our mentors. We give them a special badge. Um, you know, so they're recognized for all that they do. So those are just a few, you know, cost efficient, you know, thank yous that we do, appreciation.
Yeah, and Mick does a great job with that too. Everything he does is very personable. I mean, there's pictures
Yes.
out him out there of him barbecuing for all the staff, and yeah, he's great.
Very engaged.
Very engaged,
Our
and which is super
CEO,
important.
very engaged.
That's right. I wanted to mention that Mick is the CEO of Clearview, and he's very engaged, which is super important. Leadership should be very engaged. Marlon, I have a question for you. Frontline teams often consist of employees across multiple generations. So, how do you tailor recognition to different age groups and preferences that people have?
And so that definitely goes back to flexibility, right? And recognizing that it's not a one size fits all. And even as I look at some of my manufacturing locations, there's a different feel to each one of them, whether they're on the East Coast or the West Coast or, South in Texas. And so we have to be able to offer enough options that kind of meet people where they're at. For our more active people like yourself, we try to offer, something for like fishing, for boating, those types of rewards. But then we also have our foodies in our organizations as well, where they want those restaurant gift cards. But then also there's some of the folks that, just love shopping, or, I think somebody mentioned in the chat earlier about they got a really cool necklace, right? That they wear all the time, right? So being flexible from that standpoint is really important. And I think you find that out by you have to ask, because a lot of times, we sit in a room and say, well, here's what we're going to offer. But you get a lot more out of it when you actually ask your folks what they would be interested in, and you kind of build it from the ground up. So I think that's definitely critical.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's super important to ask. They'll let you know what they're looking for and what they want, and the idea about having something that's constantly evolving is that your employees' lives are constantly evolving as well. Today, they might be in a relationship. A year from now, maybe they have a house and then they have a family. Maybe you have someone who has a family, now they become an empty nester. So what they're actually looking for and what they want changes. And for you, Becky, what are some of the things that you find in your space?
Well, I think it's important to have variety when you're dealing with the different generations. And I can speak from utilizing Bucketlist that we have trips available that they can redeem for the people that are adventurous. You know, they can go zip lining, um, you know, all the way down to ordering things from Amazon to them. What might be important to them, or an immediate gratification could be somebody might need laundry detergent, or gas cards. Um, Two of our popular items that employees redeem, are things that they probably wouldn't do for themselves. You know, they have coffee or tea delivered to the center while they're working. They love the Stanley cups. You know, Stanley cups are what, $50. Some people are just not going to spend the money, you know, on their own. So again, I think it's all about providing variety, you know, across the different generations.
I anytime I hear Stanley Cup, that's kind of like a really unspoken word of here. I'm south of Toronto, and we would love a Stanley Cup for all you hockey fans. Yeah. I think it's also important when we're talking about different demographics and different ages, we should also consider accessibility onto how they're going to engage with a recognition program. So having a mobile device, yeah, go Gretzky. The mobile device is super important so people can access the platform. Communication tools is super important, right? So that people can find different ways to access the programs. Angie, what are some things that you see from the beekeeper side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think when speaking about age groups, we've got 5 generations currently out in the workforce. So you might be seeing, um, again, like maybe for younger generation, that Stanley Cup, that nice branded Stanley Cup is super important. But then, for your older, more experienced workers, they appreciate that tenure-based recognition. Maybe mid career, they're looking for ways to accelerate their leadership development. How can they further their career? So maybe a reward is, some additional learning budget for them. Um, Marlon mentioned it, the key is really about like getting a say from them, also like how they prefer to be recognized. But I do have a kind of a spicy take too, also on recognition. So again, like we're talking about frontline workers, and they really appreciate the swag and the food and all that stuff. That's not really something that's common. Like it might actually be perceived as a negative thing for desk-based workers. They don't want a pizza party. But again, like it's understanding who your audience is, who your workforce is, and meeting them to where they're at.
I mean, I'm not going to say no to pizza, Angie, but you're right though. It is, it's you have to understand what people are looking for. And by the way, on the pizza note, pineapple does belong on pizza. Hot topic, hot take.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I'll add to what Angie's saying there, because again, knowing your environment and what really matters in manufacturing, as most of you know, they're very regulated, unfortunately. So if I work from 7 a.m. to 3, I have a break time at certain times and I have a lunch time at a certain time. And in most cases, they get a 20 or a 30-minute break. So for us, doing a pizza party and extending their break time is huge, because now they get that social time to be with their coworkers and just relax. And, there's this energy that we get on those days, both before and after, before the tiredness sets in from maybe eating too much pizza. But, there's an energy that we get on those days because they're excited about spending time with their coworkers, having that extra time. So again, it goes back to just knowing your audience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the audience
agreed.
is super important to understand. But what are some ways that we can train and support leaders to actively recognize their teams, right? When we speak about the audience, how does it come down from the top? I'll start with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, a couple things that come to mind for me too. We need to help them understand what they should be looking for. What are those core critical behaviors? What are the things that make a difference to our business? We have to train them on that. And then how to identify those things when they happen. Then, if you've got a system in place, let's make sure they understand how to navigate it. And I like what I can't remember if it was Rebecca or Angie said earlier about keeping it simple, right? We want it to be easy enough for them to utilize. They've got so much to do in their days already. You know, utilizing your recognition program should be easy for them to follow. But then I think the other important thing is following up with some good KPIs and measurables, right? As we all know, what gets measured gets done. And I add credence to the program if I tell them that it's important, but if I never measure, or if I never follow up or challenge them when they're not recognizing employees, then everything that I've said about the value of recognition goes out the window. So I think that's another critical component of, let's tell them why we do it, let's help them, give them a good system to follow it, and then let's follow up and make sure that they're actually doing it because there's value and because it matters.
I mean, there's an ROI, as you said, what gets recognized is likely to get repeated. I often suggest when I meet with leaders that if they can start their meetings with good news, if you have a recognition partner like Bucketlist, or you have a Beekeeper connection, just reading some of the recognition that's in there from the leader who's driving the meeting, and even if it's a virtual meeting, joining a couple minutes early and having a conversation with someone and then starting the call with recognition as well, I think is super important. So yeah, how about from yourself, Rebecca? What are some of the best ways to train and support leaders from your point of view?
Well, I think a continuous development and skills, when you're training the leaders. And also, from upper management, just kind of following up. On Bucketlist, we're able to go in and view to see the recognitions, that our administrators, leaders of the centers are giving out, encourage them to stay engaged, and also getting feedback from the staff members. Have you gotten a thank you or a kudos, or, how do you like the program? And, the same thing that Marlin, I'll reiterate, what he said. So, I think feedback is important.
You touched on something there too, having insights into who's getting recognized and what behaviors are exemplifying. But there's also some additional insights in there too, that if people aren't being recognized, are they disconnected? Are they quiet quitting? So keeping that in mind too, like looking to see when was the last time someone was even recognized, and then maybe
Yeah.
giving them recognition, and that could be a big boost for them as well. Angie, I'll throw it over to you as well.
Yeah, I there was not just repeating, but yeah, I think leaders just need to be empowered and enabled to be able to do it as part of their core job. Again, it's not a side hustle or something they've got to figure out late at night or once a quarter. Oh my gosh, I've got to now figure out this award. Make it a repeatable, consistent, rather than just these grand gestures. And then give your leaders also the tools to make it easy. So, maybe it's like templates or an idea brainstorm with other managers, some way that they, are reminded of, or yeah, just make it part of like built into their check-ins, or their weekly, daily meetings. Before we do any, business, let's recognize and celebrate those wins. So it doesn't have to be perfect, just has to happen.
Yeah, big fan of that. And how, from your perspective, how do you measure success of recognition initiatives in the front line? And have you seen any results from your recognition programs or what you've seen in partners?
Yeah, our customers, with these engagement programs and with Beekeeper, they have tools to be able to measure that kind of indirectly. So if you're looking at like engagement surveys, for example, you can ask questions there to get their sentiment on how they feel about work and the culture. And then from those results, you can attribute it to some of these programs that you have. Retention rates, Marlin, you mentioned, safety incidents and productivity, all of that ties back again to the success of, these recognition programs. And, to Rebecca's point, if you're tracking again, like those shout outs, that could be indicators of, are they being recognized frequently? Because that could be indicators for other things, like you mentioned, quiet quitting, engagement, disengagement, or, there might be other things that you might need to then go and address because of what it is that you're finding out because of these recognition programs and engagement surveys. So yeah, again, it's not always all about the ROI. We love that in the dollar sense, but are they staying? Are they thriving? Are they giving their best work?
Yeah, I just want to, I see a good question here, and perhaps if anyone here has a good answer they'd like to throw out there, can you share any examples of how you empower leaders to support these recognition programs?
First thing that comes to my mind is get out of their way. Once you've kind of, set the ground rules of here's the things that we're looking for, the things that we want to reward folks for that are important to us, they're important to the business, they align with our core values, let them get creative too, because I've found that some of the biggest users of our systems need a little bit of flexibility because they're trying to be creative, they're trying to own it. So we have to just get out of their way and not regulate everything, if we want to really see the value in it.
You get a little thumbs up for that one. Well, it's actually a big thumbs up, but I had to work in my tiny thumb up somehow. Well, I think as far as the Q&A and questions that I wanted to run through with everyone here, Becky, I'm not sure if, or Rebecca, we got a couple. We got Rebecca, we got Rebecca. From is there anything you want to wrap up with, Becca?
Was that Becca or me?
If you guys can both say the exact same thing at the same time, that'd be pretty cool.
Well, I have one thing to add.
All right, let's hear it.
Um, what I find very helpful is having listening sessions with all staff. We have those at every center several times a year to get feedback, suggestions, and every recommendation, they will give us what they think, they would like to see, and we respond to every request. So listening to your staff, and addressing their concerns is really important. Employee surveys is a great tool to find out, what's going on in the field when you can't always be out in the field with them.
I really agree about the survey thing. And I want to just let everyone know here that if you do surveys that are employee engagement surveys, just make sure you do something with the results. If you don't do anything with the results, if you run those surveys again, you're likely going to lose trust from your employees. So if you run surveys, definitely do something with the results.
Agreed.
Awesome. Oh, that was a great discussion. Lots of activity in the chat too, lots of questions. So I'm glad that we were able to address, hopefully, most of them. And of course, I've popped the LinkedIn profiles of all the panelists as well. So I know y'all are a friendly bunch and always happy to answer questions. So I'm sure if someone has something burning they wanted to ask you, they could probably get in touch with you there. All right, so just to wrap up, I wanted to give each of the panelists an opportunity to share more about the work that their company is doing in case anybody is interested in, getting in touch, reaching out. So Marlin, I'll pass it off to you first.
So comment, we are involved in the heavy duty truck and trailer industry. So we manufacture a variety of different components for all the trucks that you drive past on the highway every day. But again, definitely happy to talk about any of the things that we're doing from a culture perspective. We've got a great employee experience program that focuses on the 3 pillars of technology, physical space, and culture. As we do those 3 things right, we believe that lends to the kind of culture that we want to build that helps employees to be successful. So happy to, answer any questions anyone may have.
Amazing. Rebecca, do you want to share more about ClearView?
Sure. So ClearView is a healthcare management company. We manage 34 nursing and skilled facilities throughout Kentucky and Tennessee. We acquired our first center in 2018, and hopefully we will continue to grow. For us, the happiness of our residents and our employees are what's most important to us.
Amazing. Thank you. And Angie?
Yep. So Beekeeper, we are actually a partner with Bucketlist. So thanks again for having us here. Beekeeper is a mobile first platform, and we're specifically built for helping frontline businesses communicate with their frontline workers, engage with them, and really be that one-stop shop experience for the frontline in a mobile app. Again, like we've talked about how frontline workers, they're not behind a desk, or they might not have company email. And Beekeeper helps centralize all of that communication, access, recognition, productivity, in a single place. So we love being a partner with Bucketlist and integrating into their platform to create that one-stop shop experience. And again, like we've got customers all over the world, and happy to connect on LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about Beekeeper, I'll get you connected with someone from our team. And yeah, happy to continue to share more about what's happening, what we see with our customers in the frontline space.
Amazing. Thanks, Angie.